Good afternoon all, and welcome to this webinar about what is an RDA Europe node and how to get involved. By default, you are muted and you cannot turn on your microphone, but you have the chance to ask whatever questions you have in the chat and in the question, sorry. The webinar is going to be recorded and will be available during the next days on the RDA website. So let's start. This webinar will be managed by Daniel Bangert and Sarah Jones. Daniel is the scientific manager of RDA Europe at the University of Göttingen, and Sarah Jones works at DCC as the coordinator of the data management planning tool. So Daniel, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Ilaria, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. I'm Daniel Bangert from the University of Göttingen in Germany and one of the organizers on behalf of RDA Europe. Before we start, also I've included the link to the slides on SlideShare, and the link is also in the chat if you would like to access those and follow along. So the aim of this webinar is to introduce the network of RDA Europe nodes and to also launch the call for new nodes. I'll provide a brief introduction, then we'll hear from current RDA Europe nodes in the Netherlands and Italy. Following that, my colleague Sarah Jones will explain our plans to grow the network and the process to become a new node. In brief, the Research Data Alliance is a community-driven organization whose mission is to build the social and technical bridges that enable open sharing of data. The RDA has close to 7,000 individual members now and is a truly global network with members coming from 137 countries. It uses interest groups and working groups to progress its aims of global data interoperability, and there are now over 90 groups established. An important framework for the RDA and its activities are the guiding principles of openness, consensus, balance, harmonization, community-driven, and non-profit. I'm highlighting these as they should be considered when becoming involved with RDA, either as an individual member or in applying to become a node. In this context of RDA and its goals, RDA Europe 4 operates as the European plugin to the Global Research Data Alliance. RDA Europe 4 launched in March of this year, building on previous projects also funded by the European Commission. One of the project's primary objectives is to create a European network of nodes to enhance member state cooperation and support of RDA in European countries, and vice versa, to enhance the representation of EU countries in RDA globally. So to start with, what is a node? RDA Europe nodes are defined as entities that operate on a national or regional level to promote the activities and outputs of RDA to their communities and engage these communities in becoming involved in RDA. Each node has a program of activities that respond to national and European interests. At this point, 9 nodes have already been established. These are the Athena Research and Information Center in Greece, the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, CNRS in France, the Italian National Research Council, CNR, the CSC IT Center for Science in Finland, DANS in the Netherlands, the Max Planck Computing and Data Facility, the National Library of Ireland, and the Science and Technology Facilities Council in the UK. What does a node do? It has several objectives. Nodes support data-related activities at the national or regional level. They act as central contact points between national data practitioners and RDA. They promote the RDA vision and results through events, workshops, and meetings, develop concrete actions to facilitate the uptake and adoption of RDA outputs and recommendations. They interact with national research funding bodies and advocate for data issues, and they participate in RDA processes and governance to represent their national and regional interests. So how can you get involved? Well, firstly, if you're not a member already, you can join the Research Data Alliance. And following this, you can also get in touch with the RDA node in your country or region to collaborate on data sharing and RDM challenges. The link to national groups gives you the details of what's happening in various regions, and these will also be updated with further information about the nodes. And today we're launching the call for new nodes, so if there isn't a node established in your region, you can apply to become a new node at that link. And just before I finish, also, besides the call we're launching today, there will be further grants established by RDA Europe, so you can look out for these coming up later in the year for early career researchers, experts, ambassadors, and RDA output adoption grants.
If you have any questions on this first part, please put them in the questions pane. Thanks. Sorry, Daniel.
Okay, I'll now hand over to Lisa, who will talk about the RDA Europe node in the Netherlands. Lisa.
Thank you, Daniel. Hi, my name is Lisa de Leeuw, and I work for DANS. We are representing the RDA national node in the Netherlands. We are one of the first nodes to start in the RDA4 projects because we are already quite involved in RDA, and we have about 239 members in the Netherlands, 35 of which are subscribed to one or more RDA working groups or interest groups, and 11 RDA members from the Netherlands are chairs of 14 different working and or interest groups. The interaction of DANS to date is basically that we are co-chairing a couple of groups, for instance, the domain repository interest group, the RDA WDS certification of digital repositories, the repository audit and certification DSA WDS partnership working group, which is now finished, but that was also chaired by us, or co-chaired at least by us, and the RDA WDS publishing data recovery for data centers interest groups. Other RDA activities that we were involved in were the Technical Advisory Board and the Council. Ingrid Dillo, one of our vice directors, is actually part of that. And in the Organizational Advisory Board, Peter Doorn, our director, is taking place. Regarding the RDA node in the Netherlands, I will be the contact person for that, trying to coordinate all the activities that I will present during this presentation. I can't seem to get the next slide, but I will just continue. In some countries, the RDA nodes will be set up as a separate legal entity. Within the Netherlands, we will not be doing that because fortunately, we already have a lot of national initiatives that are out there. So instead of reinventing the wheel, we would like to tweak everything that's there and make sure that it suits the needs of course, our customers, being the researchers and data scientists, etc., but also the government, so that we make sure that we adhere to their needs and make sure that we find answers to questions that they have in the research data environment. We would like to sustain this because like I said, we already have a lot of existing initiatives through channels like RDNL, which is Research Data Netherlands. It is one of our it's a collaboration between DANS, the 4 technical universities, and SURF-SARA, and they are providing data services to researchers and data managers. But we also have the LCRDM, which is the national coordination point for research data management. And that has all our stakeholders, users embedded in them, but we can also use them as a test bed or even a sounding board of users. For the funders, we have we have existing lines with them, but we would like to set up an RDA coordination group for the funders, at least, to make sure that we can get them together and we can tell them about what's going on within the RDA, but also to hear their concerns and problems that they might have, and how we can find solutions for them. Next slide. Our priorities are promoting, of course, the RDA outputs and recommendations already out there. A lot of work has been done, and we need to make sure that this is implemented in different sections of national but also international environments that we are involved in. The second one is certification of especially trusted digital repositories. Within DANS in the Netherlands, we have quite a lot of experience in that, and that also ties into the RDA recommendation, repository audit and certification catalogs, which we would not only like to use as a theme for our national node, but also maybe as a theme across Europe, to make sure that we can help people get information and get informed on certification, how it works, and what's involved in it. Our third item of interest or priority is PID. We're doing that through the PRD interest group, but also through the Horizon 2020 funded projects of Freya, which is at the moment working on PIDs and a graph. So we would like to inform our national, but also our international people working on that. Then how do we want to do that? Basically, like I said, there are already a lot of existing authorities and organizations active in the Netherlands, so we want to use those, but we've also been asked through the project to especially focus on social sciences and humanities. So we have 2 ambassadors here in the Netherlands that do the rounds in the Netherlands, but also, of course, in Europe, and they're spreading the RDA gospel in national and international workshops and conferences to make sure that the RDA word is out there. Furthermore, the RDA, we will organize national events, so local events in the Netherlands through our and we'll make sure that they're all disseminated through our through the channels that are already there with our principal actors that we're working with. Furthermore, we'll be organizing 3 workshops, also on the themes that I mentioned on the slide before. So that would be an RDA general introduction to the benefits and the benefits of joining RDA. We would like to do one on certification and also one on PIDs. Most of the dissemination will be in English, because fortunately within the Netherlands, people basically see that as the language to communicate in, especially in the research field. But we will provide translations where necessary, and definitely focusing on our priorities that I mentioned on the former slide. So thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, please use the question box.
Thanks, Lisa.
Hello.
Hi, Emma. Yeah, we hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. Hi. I am Emma Lazzari from CNR. I work for the Institute of Information Science and Technology in Pisa in Italy. And we are the coordinator for the Italian RDA Italian Europe node. We also are quite involved in RDA and other open science activities and projects here in Italy. That's why we're choosing to be the coordinator for the node. Okay, so as said, we are the coordinator, and responsibles are myself and Donatella Castelli here in Pisa. The idea that we have is that we would like to collaborate with institutions, single persons, infrastructures, and other initiatives on the national level to create a community and support it to facilitate the participation in RDA activities. We actually already have a working group, the Italian Open Science Support Group, which is a member of the coalition of doers of the European Science Cloud. And they already joined the node 10 days ago. And we also have some contacts with the ECDI, which is the Italian Computational and Data Infrastructure, that we contacted some weeks ago. They are also interested in joining the group. Okay, we can build our community starting from the Italian members of RDA that are currently over 300. Most of them, they work in the academia and research field. So the Italian members of RDA will be, of course, invited to join the RDA node activities, and the new members of the RDA node community will become members by subscribing the RDA guiding principles that Daniel showed previously today. And we will also involve organizations and institutions on the national level. In the Italian reality, we have a strong need for coordination in the fields that are related to RDA activities. So we need to coordinate research infrastructures and other initiatives, and we need to make services and related to data and users get in contact with each other. We have a strong need for data management plan training and support, and we also need to develop our data repository network. So for these reasons, we choose as a national priority area the data management plan. Okay, so what can we do for our community? We want to facilitate the relations within the Italian open science community and be a catalyzer of project infrastructures and initiative on the national level. We want to promote the interest of the Italian community in RDA and facilitate its participation in RDA. And we want to organize events, workshops, training courses, webinars on themes that address the community need and interest. We will engage the funder. We already have contact with the major public and private funders here in Italy due to other initiatives, and we will present the node in the next months. We already have contact, for example, with the Italian Ministry of University and Research and other important private funders like Cariplo and Teleton foundations. And we want to organize updates and contacts via conference call with them monthly. So we will promote the open calls that Daniel mentioned. We will promote them in Italian language, and we will promote them during the events that are sponsored by RDA and the RDA National Node. We will use several channels to do this, our websites, mailing list, we have Facebook, Twitter accounts, and other initiatives. And we target to reach at least 10–20% of Italian RDA members that can be involved in our community. We want to focus our events that we will organize also in collaboration with other Open Science Reality, and mainly two themes: the next generation data repository and the open science in the marine sectors. But of course, we are open to discuss with our members in the next months other themes for the events. And about the dissemination, in the RDA Europe 4 project, we are in charge for some publication, special issues in the Codata journal. So we will help our community to publicate in these issues. And also we will use some Italian science and popular science journals to disseminate the node activities. We also want to organize a summer school on data stewardship and webinars and seminars to disseminate the RDA Europe work. So that was all for my presentation.
That's
if you
great.
have any questions, please. Yeah, great.
Excellent. So thank you, Emma. By all means, add more questions to the question area as we go along. And what we'll do, we'll pick them up at the end. So what we've heard so far is a bit about the existing nodes and the kind of activities that they're doing. And what I want to focus on now is how we're having these calls to grow that network. And you can see from the map and from what Daniel shared at the outset, we already have some existing contacts in certain countries or regions. And what we'd encourage in those areas, if you're based there and you're wanting to do work in this area, to work with your existing node. And really these calls are to focus on growing the network into these kind of grey areas of the map. So it's largely kind of Central and Eastern Europe, also kind of Scandinavia, and I think it's Belgium that we haven't got covered over here. So there's a few areas where there's potential to have a new node. And this screen isn't moving for me either. If somebody has the controls to shift, if they can move me forward a slide. Excellent. So what we're wanting to do, as I said, is to grow this network, and we have 3 waves of cascading grants to do that. So we have 462,000 that will allocate across those 3 waves, and this is our initial call that's coming out now. So it's just opening today. You have essentially 2 months to respond, because we're conscious that the application process, although it's not many questions we're asking, there's a lot of liaison that you're going to need to do within your country or region to define, you know, who are the important stakeholders, how will you collaborate. So you've got a couple of months to pull that together, but we actually encourage you all to consider applying now. Even if you don't think you'll be ready for this first call, I think it's good to get those discussions started. And we're also happy to, you know, to answer questions and to give you advice, so it's worth consulting early. So we're expecting the new nodes to begin in October. We're going to have the call open for 2 months, and then we've got obviously a review process to decide which 3 to bring on initially. We then will have other calls next year and into 2020. And you can see the link here for the details of the call. So if I can go forward a slide. Excellent. So in terms of applying for the grant, you just need to review the call criteria. And I think, just think strategically about where are you strong, where do you have gaps. So obviously you're interested, it might be that other people in your country are as well. So try and form collaborations and partnerships so that you're addressing those key elements of the call. And start to draft your proposal over this next couple of months. As I mentioned, you can get in touch with us with questions. We can help, you know, give you advice based on the existing nodes and what we're looking for. And we do suggest starting early to do that. So what I want to do now is to walk you through the different questions within the call and the information we're looking for in that. So the first area is, well, there's some admin details first. You're asked for your own information when you put in the proposal, but the first main question is about the personnel involved in your proposal. And you can list up to 8 individuals. We ask you to provide a bio sketch for each, explaining their kind of background and the kind of things you should draw out of, the role that they will play in their role in your node. What are the specific skills that they're bringing to your consortium? Is it that they've got the communication skills and networking building skills, or do they have links with funders? You want to try and get a balanced mix of participants in your proposal. And we really recommend forming a diverse group because, as you've heard, one of the key aspects of these nodes is that you grow the RDA network and you build a kind of strong data environment in your country or region. So you want to try and make sure that you're representing all the different stakeholder groups. And then in terms of the current RDA activities, you've already had a couple of examples of what's happening in the Netherlands and in Italy. But essentially what your consortium will be doing is trying to grow the membership. So it's important that you already have a good understanding of RDA, that you're involved already, either as members, you've been to plenaries, potentially you're contributing to groups in the way that Lisa and Emma have profiled. You might co-chair the groups, or you may have people who are already on the technical advisory board, the TAB members or council of RDA. If you've done anything like adopting the outputs, that's really good to profile as well, to show that you're not just aware of RDA, but you're actually using RDA outputs and you're trying to seed those within your own national environment. And I know some people have been running events in their own countries, kind of linked or partnering with RDA to co-brand things. So these are the kind of things that are really good to profile, to show that you have a good understanding of RDA activities currently and that you're involved in them. And again, you can draw back on the different members, try and show how the people who you've brought together in your consortium have a kind of breadth of engagement across these different areas of activity. In terms of the planned node activities, there are various things you'll be asked to do. It's about growing the membership of RDA, so you're needing to engage a broad range of stakeholders. You'll have heard Lisa and Emma talk about the national priorities and their kind of topics that they're focusing on. So you want to think about what's important in your country context, if there are kind of certain areas that you should prioritize in your activities. And what we're really wanting to see from RDA is that you're growing the membership and helping to increase the adoption of outputs. So RDA is a kind of bottom-up organization, and there are working groups that form to develop products, but then there's a lot of work that's needed to try and make people aware of those. So how different groups, libraries, or how different data centers could maybe adopt those outputs. And this is really where the nodes come in, because you're the intermediaries between the global RDA Foundation and what's happening on a local level with data practitioners in your country. So you're really that interface to try and share what's happening at RDA and embed that in the local practice. So you'll be asked to provide a detailed work plan of activities, as Lisa and Emma have profiled, to show what it is you're going to be doing within your node. And, we expect you to run events and to have certain milestones that we can then track and assess that the work's going on as planned. And Daniel had mentioned the RDA principles. We would like to make sure that all of the activities you do are open and community driven and are responsive to the needs within your given context. And those principles of kind of openness and consensus should be apparent in the way you're running the node as well. It's useful. The fifth question is about community endorsements and support. I've said that you want to try and have a broad range of stakeholders involved in your node application. So you want to demonstrate, who's supportive and what commitments you have from different groups. I think in most countries or regions, there will be various advocacy bodies, maybe open science groups or regional networks to coordinate RDM activity, or different funders that are really influential. So you want to show that you've got those people on side and that you've got relationships with them. Potentially, you may be able to get some financial contributions or formal endorsements or cooperation agreements, and that's the kind of thing you want to write in to make your application more robust. And as I said, we're looking for a broad stakeholder mix. This is about engaging and representing your given country or region. So you want to show that you've got that diverse range of stakeholders. And then the key element for us actually is the sustainability. So we're viewing this RDA money that we're giving throughout the project as a way to kind of seed activities in different countries. But you need to think about how you have a future plan, how you can support that through other networks within the country, how you can get funders within your country to support this activity. So if you do achieve any kind of in-kind contributions or financial contributions, that can really help strengthen your proposal. But what we would like to see all the nodes do, and one of the things the existing ones are doing, is looking into business models and opportunities to make their work sustainable over time. And there is some parallel activity happening with the RDA Global Foundation, where they're thinking about regional memberships, and potentially if there are a network of European nodes, they may transition into being regional members contributing into RDA. So that's something that you should maybe bear in mind for kind of later horizons. So I think the sustainability is quite a key aspect of the proposal. So the way we're evaluating your proposals, there are 4 key criteria. So we look at your existing involvement in RDA, make sure that you've got a good understanding of the RDA work so that you're able to share that in your area. We want to see that you've got some contributions to RDA, that you've been either members or active in different groups. So do demonstrate, what it is that the members in your consortium have been doing, and if you have done things like adopting outputs, do promote that. We'll then be assessing the impact. What's the potential for your node? Do you have lots of connections or and influential groups involved already? Do you have strong relations with national ministries and funders in your area so that you can try and help shape the policies that they're developing and shape the investments they're making in infrastructure? And we have a number of different cascading grants within RDA. It's not just these node calls. In the RDA Europe project, we're also supporting early career researchers and experts and ambassadors to get involved. And we would expect the nodes to help cascade those out and get people in your countries or your areas to apply for those too. And potentially it might be that there are certain ambassadors who then work within your node as well. We also want to look at your community connections, so making sure that this isn't only looking at one context, that you've got lots of different disciplinary connections and the ability to recruit a large cohort of new RDA members. And here you can pick up on things as well, like your ability to do communication and advocacy and outreach work. So if you've run lots of events before or built networks, profile that kind of activity. And then, as I mentioned, the sustainability is also really key. So that's the 4th criteria that we're evaluating on. And the impact and sustainability have a slightly higher rating than the kind of community connections and RDA involvement, because we really want to make sure that the investments we make here do go on to have, a longer term impact than just the project funding. So that's what I wanted to cover about the node calls. I can see the chat pinging up, so I think there's probably more questions that have come in while I've been talking. But what I'd suggest we do now, if Daniel unmutes too, what we can do is start to go through these questions. Yeah,
I can recap all of them.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't know if you're able to project it so everyone sees all the questions on screen, or if we just read them out.
Yeah, I think that we just read them out. I mean,
okay.
It's easier. So the first question is, about is the new RDA node call open only for centers that are based in countries where there is no node yet?
Yes, yeah. So I started to respond to that one just in the chat before speaking. Essentially, we're wanting to grow the network beyond where we already have existing nodes. So if you're in a country where there is already a contact point, you should liaise and work with them and grow the network with them. But yeah, the call is open to people that don't already have existing nodes.
I'll just add that Emma had highlighted an example of an organization having an agreement with the node. So if you're in that situation, get in touch, work out how you can work together. And if you've got overlapping interests and challenges that you want to solve, then the RDA community could be one of those ways that you help to advance those kinds of initiatives in your region.
And okay, thanks both. Then the next question is about a mailing list for the announcement that we mentioned, like the other calls. And if Sarah or Timea wants to answer, otherwise I can do that. Okay, so all
sorry.
the calls. No, yeah, okay. Just go on, Timea. Sorry.
Go ahead. I just meant to say that there is no specific mailing list where you can follow these announcements, but they will be widely promoted on the RDA website and through the various newsletters that we have. So the global ones, as well as the European focused ones, and also there will be dedicated announcements when the specific calls will be launched. So as long as you're registered on the RDA website, you will receive these sort of communications, and we'll also do outside the internal communication channels a wide promotion on social media. So make sure you follow RDA Europe and RDA Global on Twitter, because that's always the most immediate way to get updates.
Thanks, Timea. Yeah, go on.
Yep. There were also national group pages, so you can also join those. So first become a member of RDA and join those national pages.
Okay, next question is for Emma. So how do you get in touch with the funders? Because this is a good question.
Hello. Yeah, sorry, I had my mic muted. We have already contacts with funders thanks to other initiatives like OpenAir. We also host the National Open Access Desk of OpenAir, so we already contact some funders in previous months and years. So that's how we already get in touch. And then we plan to contact some small funders in the next months. We will start from the Tuscan region and the Piemonte region, and then we will go over with others.
And another question you can answer, probably, Emma,
Yes.
which is about dissemination in local languages.
Yes, we have this problem, which is common with other countries. People are not very familiar with the English language. So what we want to do is to translate the main outputs of RDA, and we will also use the Italian language to promote the RDA initiatives and calls. And what we thought was important was to publish some in some scientific and journals, and also to use some popular science journals to promote the RDA node and RDA activities. We thought that this could be really helpful to have people join the node.
Okay, thanks, Emma. Let me just go back to the questions as I got lost. Then we have a question about the funding model.
Okay. So, I mean, Sarah Garavelli can probably come in on this a little bit more, or somebody from Göttingen, but essentially, that funding that we're allocating will be split across 3 nodes. So there's funding that can cover the core setup of your organization and the kind of person months to run the activities. But then there will be direct costs for things like events, for room bookings or catering, things that you need to do around that as well.
Yeah, maybe I can add one comment on this. So the funding mechanism for the funds will be distributed via cascading grant mechanism. And so this first call plans to award the grants through 3 new nodes for a total amount of 168,000 euros, as you have seen on the slides. And I would like to clarify that these funds have to be considered seed money for the establishment of the national node that is expected to be sustained via national funds after the end of the RDA 4 project, so by May 2020.
Okay. If there's any other doubts on this, just please go on writing in the questions box. Okay, next question is, as intermediaries, nodes need to have some official support. In a node proposal, how can we best show the support of national funding bodies or data scientists or scholars or communities in general?
Mm-hmm. I guess it comes down to what links you have. So with funders, they may not be directly involved in running the node activities, but they could potentially give letters of support or show that they, will have some kind of endorsement of your node. I think sometimes it's difficult to get those kind of formal endorsements. So any kind of informal letters showing that they approve of what you're planning to do or that they will get involved in it in some way would be good. For data scientists and scholars, it could be that they're a key part of your proposal. Maybe they're going to run some of the activities or act as ambassadors to kind of seed the messages or help with the adoption of outputs. It really comes down to who it is that you're working with and what they could potentially do within your node. So you could have all different levels of inputs. It might be that somebody's just providing advice and feedback on your node activities. At like a funder level, they may not want to be actively doing things.
Thanks, Sarah. And then there is another question that is about how hard could be for countries or regions that had no prior funding from RDA to participate in the calls.
Yeah, so just to clarify, on this point, we have said that the nodes are for countries that haven't had funding before. There's a slight open issue at the moment. We have the RDA Iberia region, and we're clarifying what the scope is there because funding hasn't gone directly to Portugal, and if funding doesn't go to Portugal, then Portugal should be eligible in its own right to apply, because we don't expect people to build something from nothing. Everybody should have the potential to get some seed funding to then grow the nodes. So if we do have regional nodes, we do need to make sure that there's representation of all partners within the region and that there's funding for all areas within that region. So yeah, everybody has to be given some opportunity to then build from.
Okay, next question is about how important, how relevant in the application is any prior RDA involvement.
So as we mentioned, that's marked for kind of 20%. So I think if you've had no involvement at all, it would seriously weaken your application. But as I mentioned, you should have a consortium. So across your consortium, there may be people who have been less involved and others who've been more involved. If you haven't had any involvement yet, what I would suggest doing is get involved with the view to apply to a later call. Because in order to have the greatest impact in your region, you need to understand RDA and you need to be able to share the messages and to spread that in your area. So at the moment, if you haven't had any involvement at all, I would view it as a bit of a barrier, but that's not to say that that prevents you from applying at a later stage.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Then the next question is about how to know who is the contact person for a certain node.
I see Daniel's already typed, so do you want to respond, Daniel?
Sure. There was a question about France as well in particular. At the moment, we're going to be using the national group pages on the RDA website. So you will see that there are some, for instance, RDA in France pages, and these will be updated with more information as the nodes become more established and start to communicate their activities. So at the moment, if you have a specific question, I think best to email, but that will be made public on those group pages. And I'll answer your question, Peter, in the question box. Yeah.
Further to that, you mentioned, Daniel, there's a question from Laura regarding the French node. Actually, the information for the contact persons for the French node is already available on the node page. So that should be Françoise Genova and Francis André. But as Daniel mentioned, if the information is not already listed on the national group page, you can always contact actually the mailing list. So join the group and you'll be automatically subscribed to the list, and you can write to the group asking questions like contact information or specific documents or things like that, or just simply how to get more engaged into with the activities of the node.
Okay, thanks a lot. Next question is about candidate countries like Serbia. Are they eligible to apply for the node grant?
Maybe I can answer this question, and the answer is yes, they can.
Okay, thanks, Sarah.
I just want to clarify, it's not a NOAD grant, but a grant for the nodes.
Yeah,
just to make sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but Biliana is a NOAD for open air, so the sound is quite similar for the word, but
that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
And next question from Biliana is
just as an extra point to that. So all countries in the European Economic Area can apply for a node. So that's our reference for the eligibility from that point of view. So they don't need to necessarily be part of the EU. It's the wider European Economic Area.
Thanks a lot for the clarification, because I think that it will help all people to understand what Europe are we talking about. And next question is about the possibility to have a list of people from one country who register for RDA, because it will be easier for the want to be node to work together and to work with these people who already express some interest. Not sure with the GDPR thing ongoing, how this would be possible.
So, we actually do have on the RDA website, if you scroll down on the home page, we have a public list of RDA members, and then under that page you can filter them based on the individual countries that you might be interested in. Bear in mind that, of course, the information that is available doesn't include email, but you have the names and you have the names and you have the organization and the reference country. So that's I think a very good place to start. And then again, going back to the national groups, you always have the list there, and you can see who's member of the specific node.
Okay, thanks a lot, Timea. Next question is about person month allocated for the nodes. like for example, how much FTEs are allocated for the Italian and the Netherlands nodes. Not that this information is to be shared, but just for information. I don't know if Emma has the answer to this.
Sorry, I don't have the answer now. I don't want to say something that is wrong because I didn't bring my DOA with me. So I don't know if Lisa has some information about this.
Unfortunately, Lisa had to leave, so.
Oh, she left. If you want, I can check and come back to you in a moment.
Oh yeah, yes, please.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just to have an average information.
Yes.
Okay.
No
Thanks,
worries.
Emma.
Yeah.
Actually,
Or if
as a
Sarah's
point,
able to say, I don't know if we can just say an estimate based on the different node plans that have been submitted.
you shouldn't be considering the amount, so the funding in person months. I know that it's an important aspect for the actual management, but think of the funding in lump sums. So that depends. Most of the costs are eligible. I don't think that it would be a good reference to give such numbers because the cost of personnel differs from one country to another, from one organization to another. So it would be, I think, misleading.
Okay, and actually this maybe links into a question that's been asked by Giannis later on about if there's a maximum and minimum duration of the node's kind of lifetime during the project when the grant can be used. I mean, we're expecting the nodes to run for the entire period, so the grants that are being given on the first wave are higher than the second and the third because they'll be running for a longer period. So what we expect you to do is to have a work plan that delivers activities throughout. So for the ones starting now, the project finishes in May 2020. So they'll be starting in October. So it's a little bit under the 2 years. The later ones will have a year or probably about 9 months to run for the very final call. So yeah, so I think rather than thinking about FTE equivalents, because you need to make sure you've got people available to do things throughout that whole period, it's maybe worth thinking in like block terms, as Timea was saying.
Okay, thanks both. Next question, we're almost at the end, is about any other funding streams to engage in activities with RDA, but it has already been mentioned that there will be other open calls for experts, early career researchers, adoption grants, and ambassadors. So everything will be available on the RDA website when the calls are going to be launched. Other question is about the percentage of in-kind financing required for a proposal.
Yeah, so there isn't a requirement, but we are looking for sustainability plans. So showing that you're putting in, additional effort, or if you have some kind of, if you are able to get some contributions financially from others, if you have funding from, grants within the country that kind of bolster this activity, that's definitely a strength. But there isn't anything like we wouldn't, preclude any applications because there isn't a certain level of in-kind contribution or financing.
Okay, then there's a last question about are applications from Portugal eligible?
Yeah, so as I said, there's a kind of open question here. We're working on the basis that yes, they are, although we're having further discussions with the Iberian node just to understand what the exact position is there. But we have had interest from people in Portugal to apply to this, and I think I would encourage you all to discuss together because I think it sounds like it would be sensible to have an application from Portugal.
And a last request, because as the slides on SlideShare are not downloadable, if we can provide the attendees with a PowerPoint version of them.
We will make the recording as well as the slides available on the webinar page.
So that's it.
Yes, in a nutshell, yes.
And just a final point to Marcos there, that it sounds like it's a no-go if there's been no prior involvement. I don't think it is at all. I mean, obviously you're here now, you've got some involvement with RDA from now. If you are wanting to apply, I'd encourage you to get involved in RDA and also see who else in your country is involved in RDA, so you can start to form those links. So I think it would make it difficult to apply to the first call if you haven't had any involvement, but certainly not to later ones.
And I'll just add that part of this objective with the nodes is to have a network into places and countries and organizations where maybe RDA hasn't been as well known or activated. So we do want to see it in countries or regions where perhaps there's an opportunity to grow the data community. So again, that's just one part of the application, but especially in the later calls, we'll be looking to really grow in other areas.
Okay, is there any other late question we can answer? It doesn't seem so. So thanks all for joining, and you will receive updates on whenever we will make available the recordings on the RDA website. Thanks a lot also to the speakers for your time, and have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.